Hi, true crime fans. This is me, Patti Lee. This is episode 18, and we are on our flight here. We're to our fourth case, which is the Petito-Schmidt civil lawsuit that's happening in Florida. I chose a Schmitt Sohne Reisling. It's the blue bottle of Reisling. It is white. It is crisp and fruity. It reminds me of Gabby because it's, sweet. Gosh, we miss her. It's weird how you can miss people you don't know, but we learned all about her last year, last August, and she seems like the light of everybody's life that she was involved in, and I am sure she is missed. So, and we know she is missed. So here's to Gabby Petito. You can follow the Gabby Petito Foundation on Twitter, which helps to find other missing girls and women. You can also follow, her father and I guess her mom on Twitter. They are really they're taking their pain and doing a lot of good work with it. So to the Gabby Petito Foundation and to Gabby, wherever you are, I'm sure that book Lovely Bones, it kind of reminds me, somebody had a picture of that, like of Gabby. I am sure she is looking down and she's very glad that her family are fighting to have her name remembered in a positive way with the foundation, and also to hold people responsible, because there are just some things in life that we expect from one another. So there's two civil cases that have been filed in the Gabby Petito case against the Laundries. One against the couple, Roberta and her husband Chris Laundrie, by each parent, Joseph Petito and Nicole Schmidt, Gabby's parents. That's the case we're going to be talking about because there was just a hearing held in Florida about it. The second civil case is Nicole Schmidt against the Brian Laundries estate for wrongful death, which if you listen to Peter Tragos, hi Peter Tragos, on The Lawyer You Know, and he is a lawyer I know. He's great. He's a Florida-based lawyer, and he's been covering a lot of the Johnny Depp trial with the rest of LawTube, but he's talked about this case, and he was featured on WFLA, Hey JB, hashtag Hey JB, Hey JB, who I watch, and I watched a lot of, to talk about the Gabby Petito case, because that's the local sort of news that spoke about this and was looking, they followed the whole case. So let's get into it. The hearing yesterday was to talk about if the case should be dismissed or not, because a case involving, it's a claim of emotional distress, intentional emotional distress. It is hard because you need to meet a level of intentional, and inexcusable, there's another word that Peter used, something that would be much above the expected disregard for someone and to cause them this emotional stress. There's a level you need to meet that it's it's a very hard level to meet. You can't just accidentally do something that hurts somebody. That's not enough to say you caused me emotional distress and harm. It's got to be more than that. And they went over a couple of cases about what it is and what it isn't, and that was in the filings. So if you're somebody who reads legal filings, and again, at the docket, at Chasing Paper, his name is Docket, at Chasing Paper 89 is on Twitter. He posts most of all the law talking cases that come up. But with this case, when Peter Tragos was talking about this, how hard it would be, he did mention about third-party statements that could be also reflected. And the judge himself, during the hearing, mentioned Johnny Depp case. And everybody's like, but Johnny Depp is defamation. What are they talking about? The reference was not about defamation, but he was, I believe, making an analogy to a lawyer speaking for the family is still speaking for the family and therefore can be considered an agent of the family or similarly positioned to be the family. So statements made by the lawyer could be considered the family statements. So while many people have said, but the Laundries remained silent, the Laundries didn't, that was their Fifth Amendment right, blah, blah, blah. The thing was, though, they didn't remain silent. They had somebody speaking for them, a third-party speaker, Stephen Bertolino. Again, now this is all my speculation, my opinion, and I'm not a law talking person. I am just someone who's been following law talking things, and I very much pay attention to these type of cases. I've represented my son pro se and stuff, so I've got a vague, very rudimentary understanding of all this. And let me just tell you, though, Stephen Bertolino opened his big fat trap over and over and over again during the search for Gabby. He spoke for the Laundries. So no, the Laundries didn't speak themselves, but he spoke. And I believe he misspoke. He gave misinformation that he knew not to be true. That is my opinion. That is my speculation, but I could point to a number of his comments. And the thing was, when he was making comments, Josh, JB, on WFLA, and I forget who is a person that he speaks with all the time, but they were talking about, you know, it's interesting that Stephen Bertolino calls and texts differently, like different organizations. He doesn't just send out one statement. And Stephen Bertolino, I believe, made an awful mistake for his clients and himself in doing so, because he spoke so often and said so many things, and that I believe it could be shown that it was misinformation, especially when one of his responses was when he said the Laundries hope that Gabby was united with her family soon and the search would be successful for her or whatever. And it definitely made it sound like they thought she was still alive somewhere out there, when it is let me just say it this way. One could make the assumption that the Laundries knew exactly what happened, that Brian came back without Gabby, and maybe he told them what he did. Maybe he told them what he did when he was in Wyoming. Maybe that's why they got a lawyer so fast. Maybe that's why he said something about Stan. There's this weird thing about, he referenced Stan and it was the wrong phone number, and they said maybe he grabbed Gabby's phone and was texting, and that she didn't call her grandfather Stan, get a hold of Stan. And actually, I do think maybe he grabbed the wrong phone, but I think he was talking to his mom, and maybe she had mentioned a lawyer named Stan, because there's a Stan who was a criminal lawyer who's an associate, I believe, of Stephen Bertolino's in New York, in Ipswich. So, Long Island. So, if so facto, which again, all my supposition, all my speculation, this is just a crazy wacko theory, but if Brian was referring to this Stan who was a criminal lawyer, then his parents knew everything. And even if that isn't true, when he came home, they had, they said, and his sister at first said, we didn't see him. We knew he came home, but nobody talked about that trip to the DeSoto Park. And then, there was this camping trip. And if you remember, Brian was found with his camping equipment not used and a gunshot with his non-dominant hand. So I don't know if someone walked into that park, but it was the park. It wasn't the what were the two parks? It was the Machahichi Park where his car was parked, but that's not where his parents was directing at first. They said, he went to the Carlton Reserve. He said he went to the Carlton Reserve. And they said the wrong day he went to the Carlton Reserve. And how do we know this? Bertolino told us. gave us the wrong date. Oh, and by the way, when people found out about the park, oh yeah, Bertolino corrected that. So Bertolino was speaking though, and could be seen as an agent, and I think is as an agent for the Laundries. Just like Waldman was seen as an agent speaking for Johnny Depp. And that's what the judge was talking about in the case, I believe. Again, this is all my opinion, all my supposition. This is case 4, so this means it's my 4th drink, which means, you know, things are getting wacko. All right, so the lawyer you know, Peter Tragos, but you can find him at Tragos Law. He brought up that thing about third-party statements could possibly be considered as speaking for the Laundries, and the fact that the judge brought it up, yes. The other thing that was brought up was what was the duty of care for the Laundries? So people are like, oh, well, there was no duty of care. What duty of care could they have had? Okay, here's the duty of care. Here's the duty of care. She was engaged to their son and living in their home. Ergo, a resident of their home. She was a resident. If they would have filled out the census, she would have had to be listed as living at their home. Even though this happened, her demise happened on a trip, her residence at the time was Laundries' house. They were, therefore, as owners of that home, had some duty of care to the people inside it. Because if we don't have duty of care to the people who reside in our home, who do we have duty of care for? We're just allowed to, they can just disappear and we go, oh, I'm talking through my lawyer. I don't have anything to say. Not my fault. No, you had a duty of care to at least, even if it was anonymously, report that somebody was missing from your home. A resident, a family member, because she was engaged to your son. Roberta, Christopher. See, the thing is, Stephen Bertolino had this idea that somehow speaking through your attorney was a golden ticket. Like, oh, sorry, they're silent. No, Stephen. Number one, you're the third-party person representing them. Your statements can be taken as their statements. And you kept making up new statements about the timing when it was obvious. Thank goodness Brian... is his name Brian? I'm going to say it wrong. Eaton. The guy who is all over the news and all these cases. Is it Brian Etten? He noticed, like, when the Mustang showed up, when it wasn't. Because they got there a week after this all started. Like, when Brian got home, we found out on the 11th or 12th. By the 13th, the news was outside, and the Mustang, I believe, was already home. Anyways, Brian Etten figured out, like, what the Laundries attorney was saying didn't match the timing of when that car came and went, even if it was Roberta who brought it back. And there's also, if you look online, you can see that the this is also long ago, the North Point police found, when they found the car and said it had been sitting there, their law there is that it had to have been sitting there for 5 days. So personally, again, just my supposition, this is speculation. From what I understand is, they left DeSoto on the 8th. It looks like they drove Brian there to Machahichi, walked in, like he was gonna maybe camp there. I don't know, but looks like maybe when Brian bent down to start getting out his camping stuff, someone helped him because he was shot with his non-dominant hand, or at least he was shot in the side of his head, according to the autopsy, that it was the wrong side of his head for his dominant hand. And we know that's unusual. And he didn't even get, his equipment was all still fine, and his parents said the wrong part, and then when they went to the right part, they waited until after all the FBI was gone, and they walked right in and just, oops, look, here's his dry bag. Oh, and his body's right there. Quinky dink. I wonder how they would know. I wonder, how would they know? I mean, they drove his car home after they received a ticket from him being there. And he had been at a park with them before. Huh. I wonder what happened. Again, we're going to use Occam's razor, which is what is the simplest explanation. Who was the last people Brian was with when he was alive? Who was the people who moved his car from the place that he was found with a gunshot to the side of his head of his non-dominant hand? Who are the people who lawyered up right away? I don't know. Speaking of duty of care, you'd think maybe they had a duty of care to say exactly when they last saw their son and when they brought the car back. I'm just saying, duty of care. But what do I know? I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a YouTuber. I'm just asking questions. I have questions. I don't know. It's my speculation. It's just my opinion. Allegedly. And I guess that's the tone to say we're moving on to our next case.